5 months after the breakup, I ran into Caleb Hayes in the maternity ward of all places. I was drowning in a baggy maternity dress, my hair a complete mess. He was in an impeccably tailored suit, his stunning, polished fiancée at his side. "Caleb, do you know her?" the woman asked, tugging gently on his sleeve. His gaze, cold and distant, drifted past me to the man standing behind me holding a folder of prenatal test results. "Never seen her before," Caleb said flatly. He wrapped an arm around his fiancée's waist and walked past me as if I were a stranger. Later, my e-scooter scraped against the side of his luxury car on a street corner. He stared at my swollen belly, his eyes filled with disgust. "Where's your husband?" he demanded. "Get him on the phone. He can deal with the damages." I clutched my bleeding wrist, my mind a complete blank. I wasn't even married. What husband was he talking about? One ever since I got pregnant, my vision had been getting worse. I was just walking down the sidewalk when an e-scooter coming the other way clipped me and sent me sprawling. The rider, seeing I was pregnant, was horrified. Even though I insisted I was fine, he was adamant about taking me to the hospital for a checkup. He was a genuinely nice guy. Once we got to the hospital, he handled everything: registration, blood work, all the tests, running around until his forehead was beaded with sweat. Another pregnant woman in the waiting room even teased me. "Your husband is so sweet." I quickly corrected her. "Oh, he's not my husband. He just accidentally bumped into me and wanted to make sure everything was okay." "Where's the baby's father, then?" she asked, looking puzzled. "You really need your husband around at a time like this. What if something serious happened?" The mention of the baby's father made my heart plummet. "Caleb." "Oh." I hadn't seen him once since we broke up. We were from 2 different worlds, after all. Now we were back where we belonged. It was for the best. But sometimes, the world feels impossibly small. I had just gotten my test results back from the lab and turned around. And there he was, standing right in front of me. My vision had been coming and going, but in that precise moment, it was crystal clear. He wore a beautifully cut suit that made his tall frame look even more commanding. He was a little thinner, maybe, but his features were just as sharp and handsome as I remembered. The woman holding his arm was gorgeous, with a gentle, refined air about her. She was perfect, from her designer dress down to the last strand of her perfectly styled hair. And me, my oversized maternity dress had a stain on it. My hair was still a tangled mess from the fall. I'd seen the news online about their engagement. A union of 2 dynasties. I knew she was Sophia Davenport, the heiress to the Davenport Corporation. We were from different planets. Following Caleb's gaze, Sophia noticed me. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, her brow furrowing slightly. She tugged on Caleb's sleeve, her voice smooth as silk. "Caleb, who's this? Is she someone you know?" I was frozen to the spot, my feet feeling like they were encased in lead. I wanted to open my mouth, to casually say hello. To tell them they were a perfect couple, straight out of a magazine. But my throat was so tight with unshed tears that I couldn't make a sound. Caleb remained silent, too. His expression was a mask of indifference as he looked past me, his eyes landing on the man behind me who was now trying to figure out the medical bills. I was so mortified I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I was terrified of what he might say, of any word that could humiliate me further. But all Caleb said was a quiet, dismissive, "I'd never seen her before." Then he guided Sophia by the waist, and they brushed past me. Like 2 strangers who had never met. No one would have ever guessed that Caleb and I had once been so fiercely in love. 2 we met in high school. Same class, sat next to each other. Caleb came from money and was movie-star handsome. Half the girls in school had a crush on him. There were love letters, public confessions, the whole 9 yards. He couldn't stand it. So, he hired me to be his fake girlfriend, a shield against all the unwanted attention. The pay was great, and I desperately needed the money. It was a perfect match. All I had to do was pretend to go on dates with him after school. He loved this little cupcake shop near campus. He'd always order too. It was all for show. He never ate his, he'd just give it to me and read a book while I ate. Thanks to him, I had a full stomach every night and a quiet place to study. Our arrangement was perfect. He got his peace and quiet, and I earned enough to pay for my first year of college tuition. By some coincidence, we ended up at the same university in New York. Different majors, but our buildings weren't far apart. He was still a magnet for girls, and by then, I had guys asking me out, too. When Caleb suggested we continue our arrangement, I turned him down. I wanted to see what a real relationship felt like. I knew my situation. Once I graduated, dating wouldn't be so simple. Your family, your job, your income, it all becomes part of the equation. When Caleb found out why, he managed to convince me. He said he could give me the experience of being in a relationship, and I'd get paid. It really was the best of both worlds. So, once again, we struck a deal. Caleb and I started dating like any other college couple. Holding hands, dinner dates, movies. At first, it didn't feel real. It felt just like our high school charade. Until the Christmas of our sophomore year. My dorm and Caleb's decided to have a joint party. We were playing Truth or Dare. Caleb got a dare, a passionate kiss with a girl in the room. Since everyone thought we were a couple, the chanting started immediately. As Caleb leaned in, he whispered in my ear. "Is this okay? If you're not comfortable with it, I can take the penalty." His warm breath tickled my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. I clutched the hem of my shirt, my heart hammering, and nodded. The moment his soft lips touched mine, it felt like my heart skipped a beat. The cheers around us faded into a distant hum. Caleb's hand cupped the back of my head, gently pulling me closer. His tongue traced my lips, asking for entrance. The air grew thick and hot, my pulse racing. The kiss was deeper, longer, and more real than anything I could have imagined. And from that moment on, something between us changed. The invisible wall between us disappeared. Caleb started kissing me whenever he felt like it. While we were talking, while I was reading, while we were just walking across campus holding hands. Sometimes, if we hadn't seen each other for a few classes, he'd pull me into an empty classroom and kiss me breathless, from my forehead to the tip of my nose to my lips. I'd push him away, panting. "Caleb, are we?" Every time I tried to find clarity, to define what we were becoming, he would derail me with another searing kiss. He'd murmur his confessions against my lips. Caleb said he'd wanted to kiss me for years. From the very first day he saw me. He'd held back for 4 agonizing years. He wanted to ask me out in high school, but I had this a keep-away-y vibe. He was afraid of being rejected, of losing any chance he might have. In college, he wanted to ask me out for real, but I went back to being cold and distant, acting like we barely knew each other despite 3 years as desk mates. He lost his nerve again. He was terrified that if he tried and failed, we wouldn't even be friends. But how could I not have feelings for him? He was brilliant, luminous, completely out of my league. I just never dared to imagine that someone so perfect could ever belong to me. Once we knew how the other felt, our relationship caught fire. There was no more hesitation, no more testing the waters. We gave each other everything. For after graduation, Caleb started an internship at his family's company, Hayes Corp. I found a job nearby. But then his parents found out about us. He was their only son. The difference in our backgrounds was like the sky and the earth. I wasn't good enough for their family. So, in defiance, he was ready to give it all up for me. His father retaliated, cutting him off. Caleb left Hayes Corp. And suddenly, he couldn't find a decent job anywhere. I was fired from one job after another for mysterious reasons. Even then, he refused to give in. The boy who had been pampered his whole life started delivering for DoorDash, braving the biting winter winds and scorching summer heat. Those days were hard, but they were also the happiest of my life. For the first time, I felt the warmth of a real home. There were no arguments, no screaming matches, no cold, empty kitchens. Caleb would work all day, and I'd clean our tiny apartment and cook for him. Even if it was just a simple bowl of pasta, I made sure it was steaming hot when he got home. At night, we'd curl up in our small bed, talking, touching, loving. It felt like as long as we were holding each other, we could overcome anything. But that happiness didn't last. As the days turned into weeks, I watched the brilliant light in Caleb's eyes, once as bright as a starry sky, slowly dim and get replaced by exhaustion. We'd be lying in bed, and he'd often fall into a deep, heavy sleep just a few sentences into a conversation. I'd trace the lines on his palm. His hands, once softer than any woman's, were now covered in calluses. So when Caleb's mother showed up at our cramped walk-up in Queens, I didn't hide like he always told me to. I found some cheap tea bags in our little kitchen, the ones Caleb used to stay awake, and made her a cup. Caleb's mother didn't show a hint of disgust. She took the mug and thanked me graciously. She was a wealthy woman, but not the arrogant cliché from the movies. She was poised and elegant, and her words were gentle but carried immense weight. "Hannah, you're a wonderful girl," she began. "You've made this tiny apartment feel clean and warm. I can see that you and Caleb truly love each other. If it were up to me, I would give you my blessing." She paused, sighing softly. "Caleb may be my only son, but his father has other children. Dozens of them, for all I know. If his father gives up on him, Caleb will go from being the prince of this city to being less than nothing. Someone everyone can step on. As a mother, I see Caleb's love for you," as she continued, her eyes meeting mine. "But what about you, Hannah? Do you really love him?" Her words made me feel ashamed, selfish. It was February, that time of year when the cold still has a bite. But sitting in that unheated room, I broke out in a sweat. I had believed our love could conquer anything. But I was finally realizing that my love was dragging a star down into the gutter. I decided to let him go. To return the moon to the night sky. I moved out, blocked his number, and did everything I could to disappear. But Caleb still found me. His eyes were red-rimmed as he asked me why I would just give up. I shot back, Without the Hayes family, what can you give me? A comfortable life? A future with any kind of promise?" I looked at his stunned face, my voice chillingly calm. "Caleb, I'm tired of pretending. I thought that by getting you, I could change my fate, climb the social ladder. I just never thought it would be this hard." "Let me go, Caleb," I pleaded. "I want to use my youth, my looks, while I still have them. I want to find a man with a decent background and get married. Have kids, live a good life." I watched the light in Caleb's eyes flicker and die. His voice was hoarse when he spoke. "You were with me for my family's money?" I laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "What else? If you were broke, we never would have even started. You know that better than anyone." Only rich people can afford to be romantic, I said, twisting the knife. For someone like me, just surviving takes everything I have. How could you ever expect me to have a heart to give? Even after I'd said the cruelest things I could think of, he still reached for me, his voice a desperate whisper as his hand closed around my wrist. Hannah, just give me a little more time. Even without my family's money, I can give you a good life. I swear. I forced myself not to look at the raw pain on his face. I shook his hand off and continued my assault. I don't want to wait. When you're broke, even love feels pathetic. When you held me, all I could smell was your sweat. In that paper-thin walled apartment, I was too embarrassed to even make a sound. Caleb, why don't you just go back to being the crown prince? Accept the perfect wife your family has arranged for you. And if you really like me that much, I can be your mistress. You'll have money, and you'll have love. Isn't that perfect? In that instant, all the color drained from Caleb's face. Hannah, you make me sick. With a trembling hand, he pulled the simple silver band from his finger and threw it on the ground. I hope you find the life you're looking for. As the car drove him away, I sank to the ground. I picked up the silver ring, now smudged with dirt. I wish you a brilliant future, too, I whispered through my tears. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after we broke up. My period had always been irregular, but 2 months without it was unusual. A trip to the doctor confirmed I was 7 weeks along. I couldn't bring myself to get rid of it. It wasn't just because of Caleb. I have relatives in this world, but no one who truly loves me. There are so many kinds of love, but a child's love for their parent is the purest, the most unconditional. It's an instinct, free of calculations. For that selfish reason, I kept the baby. In the first trimester, I could still get around easily and found plenty of part-time work. I don't have expensive tastes, so besides taking care of myself, I was able to save a little money. Around the 4th month, my eyesight started to fail. Sometimes my vision would blur so badly I could barely walk. The doctor said it was due to pregnancy hormones and could get worse. It might clear up after birth, or it might not, and I might need surgery. So I wanted to save as much as I could before the baby came. After leaving the hospital that day, the man who'd bumped into me insisted on giving me $100. You're so young, and pregnant with no one to look after you. It's a tough spot to be in, he said kindly. Please be more careful from now on. I thanked him and took the money. When you're struggling, pride is a luxury you can't afford. Life went on. On days my vision was clear, I'd go out and work odd jobs. On blurry days, I'd do freelance writing from home. Maybe fate wasn't done with us yet. In the span of just 10 days, I ran into Caleb again. My e-scooter scraped against his Maybach. I was making a right turn when my vision suddenly went. This time, it was almost a complete blackout. I fell, scooter and all. From the sound of it, the handlebars had put a long, deep scratch in the car door. Thankfully, I managed to break my fall with my hands. The baby was fine, but my wrist was scraped raw, stinging with a fiery pain. I knew it was bleeding badly, a warm liquid trickling out. I had no idea it was Caleb's car. Before I could even deal with my injury, I just held my wrist tight, bowed frantically in the direction of a blurry figure, and apologized over and over. Then I heard his voice. Where's your husband? The sound of it froze me solid. I never imagined that seeing Caleb again after our breakup would be a series of escalating humiliations. My husband? I realized he must have mistaken the man from the hospital for my husband. Fine. Better to let him think that. His busy. At work. Caleb let out a laugh that was pure fury. After 3 years together, I knew that sound. It was the prelude to an explosion. Work? He's working so hard that he still can't make ends meet. He lets his pregnant wife stand on street corners handing out flyers. I figured the stack of flyers in my scooter's basket must have scattered on the ground. Call him, right now, he roared. Get him over here to talk to me about the damages. He was right to be angry. Back in our tiny apartment, when we had nothing, Caleb never would have let me work. He always said he could earn enough to support me. And he was smart, and a hard worker. Even delivering food, he made more than most. He'd spend hours mapping out routes, memorizing complex city grids. He was faster and more efficient than anyone. And the moment he got paid, he'd transfer the money to me. His most frequent texts back then were always some variation of Hannah, buy whatever you want. Get yourself something good to eat. You need to put on some weight. You're too skinny, it's like holding a bag of bones. Don't you dare try to save money for me. The memories made my eyes burn, and I was terrified I would start crying right there in front of him. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone. How much is it to fix the car? I'll pay for it. We can settle it now. I'm in a hurry. I heard Caleb's cold laugh. It was laced with something, pity, maybe, or scorn. Is this the life you wanted? I clutched my phone, my cheeks burning with shame. I didn't know how to respond. My vision cleared suddenly, and I saw Caleb's gaze fall to my pregnant belly. The disgust in his eyes was unmistakable. Thankfully, Sophia got out of the passenger seat and walked over. She linked her arm through Caleb's, her voice a soft, gentle coo. Caleb, what's gotten into you today? She was practically purring. It's obvious her life isn't easy. Why are you being so difficult? It's a tiny scratch. It won't cost much to fix. Why don't we just let it go? With his fiancée's gentle persuasion, Caleb's expression finally softened. He gave a slight nod and pulled his arm away. He clearly didn't want to waste any more time on me. He turned and got back into the car. Sophia turned to me with a small smile, but then her eyes widened. It's you. I think we saw you at the hospital, right? She said. You're pregnant. You should really be at home resting. The money can wait. Her voice was lovely, like clear spring water. She was beautiful and kind, and she even helped me pick up my scooter. You have to be more careful, you know. If not for yourself, then for the baby in your belly. As I let go of my wrist to grab the handlebars, the wound started bleeding again. Droplets of red splattered on the pavement. Sophia gasped. Oh my God, you're bleeding. She looked back at Caleb. Caleb, maybe we should take her to the hospital? Caleb's eyes flicked over, landing on my wrist. I quickly tried to cover it. It's fine, really. Just a scratch. I can patch it up when I get home. He looked away, his voice flat as he spoke to Sophia. Get in the car. Sophia turned back to me, a faint, unreadable smile playing on her lips. I'm sorry. My fiancé is a bit of a germaphobe. She got back in the car, a subtle, expensive perfume trailing in her wake. Honestly, I was happy for Caleb. A man as wonderful as him deserved an equally wonderful woman. But the car didn't move. Caleb leaned across the passenger seat, looking past Sophia directly at me. Get in. I was stunned. Sophia looked just as shocked. I waved my hands frantically. No, it's okay, I can. Caleb cut me off impatiently. Get in. I want you checked out at a hospital. I don't want any legal trouble down the line. So that was it. He was worried about being sued. Don't worry. I'm grateful you're not making me pay for the damages. I would never try to scam you. With that, I gave them a small bow, hopped on my scooter, and fled. That night, as I was cleaning and bandaging my wrist, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to the overwhelming stench of alcohol. Caleb was standing there. He looked tall and imposing, back to his old self, a stark and dazzling contrast to the shabby corridor of my apartment building. I was completely bewildered. What are you doing here? His eyes were dark, his voice cold. I'm not here to see you. I'm here to see your husband. Before I could answer, he pushed past me into the apartment. His eye swept over the tiny, bare room, his brow knitting in disapproval. Where is he? I looked down, my voice barely a whisper. He's working late. Call him. Tell him to get his ass home. Caleb sank onto my small sofa, his chest rising and falling with suppressed anger. I obviously didn't have a husband to call to play this part. And the last thing I wanted was to reminisce with Caleb while my life was such a mess. I clenched my fists. What do you want with him? If it's about the money for the car, I can transfer it to you right now. If it's not about that, you can leave. We used to be together, I said, my voice gaining strength. But now you have a fiancé, and I have a husband. We are not in a position to sit here and have a calm, friendly chat. I pulled the door open, gesturing for him to get out. Caleb shot up from the sofa, strode over, and slammed the door shut. What do I want? He snarled, his face close to mine. You're so quick to defend him. I want to ask your wonderful husband. I want to ask him what kind of a man he is, letting his pregnant wife go out and work. He yanked at his collar in frustration, pacing back and forth to calm himself down. Hannah, didn't you say you were going to use your looks to marry someone with money? This is the guy you picked. How long have we been broken up? And you're already pregnant with his kid? What? You can't live without a man? His words hit me like a physical blow. My mind went blank, a sharp, stinging sensation flooding my nose. I swung my hand and slapped him, hard, across the face. His head snapped to the side. My hand hung in the air, trembling. I had never imagined I would strike the only person who had ever truly cherished me. I had never imagined he would say such vicious things to me. When Caleb turned to look at me again, his eyes were filled with regret and self-loathing. I'm sorry, Hannah, he choked out. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. He pulled me into his arms, his grip tight and desperate on my shoulders. I couldn't break free. All I could do was let him bury his face in my neck, murmuring apologies over and over again. Caleb fell asleep. In my arms, it took all my strength to get him onto my bed. I sat on the edge, watching him sleep. He'd lost weight. Even more than 5 months ago. His jawline was sharper, his features colder. I missed the old Caleb. I knew this one didn't belong to me. His phone buzzed repeatedly. It was Sophia. I couldn't answer it. And I couldn't let Caleb stay the night. We had both made our choices. We were finally on our separate paths. After a long hesitation, I called his mother. She arrived quickly with help to take Caleb away. Before she left, her eyes lingered on my stomach. I was naturally thin, so my baby bump was smaller than average for my term. It was hard to tell how far along I was just by looking. After a long moment, she just asked a few polite questions. Have you been doing all right lately? If you need money, you can ask me. Don't go to Caleb. I replied, don't worry. I won't contact him. His mother nodded, then asked, how did Caleb fall asleep? He must have had a lot to drink before he came here. He didn't do anything else, did he? There was a flicker of suspicion in her eyes. I felt offended and instinctively placed a hand on my belly. I'm pregnant. She waved her hand dismissively. Don't misunderstand. Caleb has. He's been having trouble sleeping lately, she paused. I was just asking. She patted my shoulder, her tone polite but distant. You did the right thing. But if there's a next time, I suggest you don't open the door for him. The Davenport girl. She's not very broad-minded. Prone to jealousy. Her gaze fell to my stomach once more. Take care of yourself. After she left, I dreamed of Caleb again that night. But this time, it wasn't just the two of us. Sophia was there. As Caleb and I were laughing in our old apartment, Sophia burst in. She was sobbing, asking Caleb how he could betray her, accusing me of being a homewrecker. A cheap, pathetic other woman. I woke up with a start, drenched in a cold sweat. Homewrecker, other woman, slut. Those ugly words were the soundtrack of my childhood. My mother was the other woman. She always complained that fate had given her a beautiful face but not the life to go with it. So not long after I was born, she had an affair with a small business owner. I was only 3 when his wife showed up at our door. I remember screaming, watching this strange woman rip at my mother's clothes and hair, spitting on her, calling her a whore and a homewrecker. My father found out about her affair. But he couldn't bring himself to leave her. He craved her beauty as much as he was disgusted by her betrayal. He called her names that were even worse than what the strangers screamed. They were trapped in their own vortex of love and hate. For me, their daughter, they had neither guilt nor love. Perhaps because of my upbringing, I'd always been emotionally detached. Nothing really excited me, and nothing really bothered me. Only Caleb. He was the one thing that had ever caused a ripple in the calm, flat waters of my life. He wasn't like the other boys in our class. He never leered at my developing body. He never made snide remarks asking if my mom was a slut. He always smelled fresh and clean. And when our eyes met, he'd offer a small, easy smile that was neither intrusive nor distant. Leaning back against my headboard, I knew I had to move. I probably wouldn't get my security deposit back, but it didn't matter. My landlady was sad to see me go. I really like you, dear, she said. And you keep the place so neat and tidy. How about I lower the rent a bit, and you stay? I thought about it, but I had to refuse. I knew Caleb. Now that he knew where I lived, he would be back. I couldn't let him find out I was still single. And I definitely couldn't let him find out the baby was his. Or would just be starting the same tragedy all over again. A few days later, just as I was finishing packing, Sophia Davenport showed up at my door. She was wearing a long, cream-colored dress, her hair in soft waves. Her voice was as gentle and polite as ever. Miss Carter. Could we talk? The door closed, leaving just the two of us in the small room. She saw the boxes and bags on the floor and smiled. Are you planning on moving, Miss Carter? I nodded. She let out a soft chuckle. You must know that if Caleb wants to find you, it doesn't matter where you go. If you truly want him to move on, she said, her voice dropping, you should get married. My head snapped up. She walked over to my sofa and sat down, extending a manila envelope toward me. This is Mark Johnson's file. Oh, that's the man who bumped into you the other day. Take a look. Here's a decent prospect. For you. Sophia paused, then let the words hang in the air. More than enough. The corner of her mouth lifted in a delicate smile. It was the same beautiful smile she wore for Caleb, but here, it looked completely different. When I didn't take the envelope, she continued. Mr. Johnson is 30 years old, divorced, no kids. He's a local, owns a home and a car. Oh, and he's infertile, so he won't mind that you have a child. I couldn't listen anymore. I threw the envelope back at her. What are you so afraid of, Miss Davenport? We're not from the same world. Do you have so little confidence in yourself? Do you really think a pregnant woman like me could steal Caleb away from you? The smile froze on her face. Deciding to cut to the chase, she pulled a credit card from her purse and slapped it on the coffee table. $1 million. If I'm not mistaken, Miss Carter, you are in desperate need of money. You don't want Caleb to blow up his life for you again. Take the money and do what you need to do. Sophia was right. I did need the money. If this had been 5 months ago, I would have thrown that card back in her face. But now, I looked down at my growing belly. I wasn't afraid of hardship. But my child was not going to suffer with me. I took a deep breath and held out my hand. 5 million. I have no intention of getting married, I said. But I will play this part for you. After that, I will leave this city, and you'll never have to worry about me again. Sophia's eyebrows shot up, her eyes filled with disdain. You certainly know how to drive a bargain. She stood and brushed off her dress as if it had been contaminated. The money will be in your account tonight. I suggest you and Mr. Johnson get to know each other. We wouldn't want Caleb to see any cracks in the performance. True to her word, the money was wired to my account that night. A deal was a deal. After much thought, I added Mark Johnson on WhatsApp. Sophia must have already paid him off, because he knew exactly what was expected of him. We met up a few times to exchange basic information. Mark was of average height and build, with plain but pleasant features. He had an honest, dependable look about him. Dressed in a suit, he looked sharp and professional. I once told Caleb what I was looking for in a husband, a local guy from a stable family, decent and kind. Mark fit that description perfectly. It was probably why Caleb had so readily believed he was my husband. A few days later, Mark and I went to Caleb's office. After we stated our purpose, the receptionist made a call. A secretary led us to a conference room. Caleb was a busy man now. We waited for over half an hour before he finally appeared. Mark nervously stood up. Caleb, on a call, just waved a hand for him to sit back down. He ended the call and sat on the sofa across from us, crossing one long leg over the other. What is it? He glanced at me, his expression flat, betraying no emotion. Mr. Hayes, I'm so sorry to bother you, Mark began, giving Caleb a respectful nod. He placed a neat stack of cash on the coffee table. He recited his lines perfectly. My wife told me what happened. I didn't realize until later that she accidentally scratched. Caleb's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. He had no patience for this. He held up a hand, cutting Mark off. My assistant will handle the details of the car repair with you. If there's nothing else, you can leave. He didn't look at us again. He stood up and started walking toward the door. His indifference was so absolute that I started to think hiring Mark was a waste of time and money. But Mark was determined to see the play through. My wife told me you two used to be together, he said, his voice steady. Mr. Hayes, we're very happy now. We may not be rich, but Hannah and I are content. So, I hope you won't disturb our lives anymore. Caleb stopped in his tracks and turned to look at us. His face was calm, serene. I admit, I had some unresolved feelings, he said. But seeing that Hannah has the life she always wanted, I'm happy for her. He looked at me and gave a small, polite smile. It was a smile that held the quiet acceptance of someone who had seen it all and moved on. As if the night he showed up drunk at my door was nothing but a dream I'd had. The weight on my chest lifted, but my heart sank with it. After Caleb left, Mark looked confused. Mr. Hayes seems pretty rational. Was all this really necessary for Miss Davenport? I took a breath, finding my voice again. It's a high-stakes corporate merger. A little extra caution is normal. But thank you, Mark. Could you just see me out? Mark smiled good-naturedly. Of course. In for a penny, in for a pound. As we left the conference room, I told Mark to wait for me in the lobby. I needed the restroom. The further along in my pregnancy I got, the more urgent the need became. When I was done, my vision blurred again. I was starting to see a pattern. Besides the hormones, my eyesight fluctuated with my emotions. At least I was getting used to it, no longer panicking like before. I felt my way along the wall, inching out of the restroom. I heard footsteps approaching. I held out a hand, speaking to the blurry shape. Excuse me, my eyesight isn't very good right now. Could you possibly help me get downstairs to the lobby? As the figure drew closer, a familiar scent washed over me. I froze, my body rigid. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. Our last goodbye, and I was just as pathetic as ever. What's wrong with your eyes? Caleb's voice was laced with a tremor I'd never heard before. I fought to keep my own voice steady. It's just the pregnancy hormones. My vision comes and goes. It should get better after the baby is born. It's okay, I can make it down on my own. I started to pull my hand back, but Caleb's large, warm hand closed firmly around it. I'll take you. He didn't say another word. He held my hand and walked slowly, matching his pace to mine. The familiar warmth spread from his hand through my entire body, heightening all my senses. His breath, so close. The frantic beating of his heart, which seemed to echo my own. I think we both knew this was the last time we would ever walk this path together. So we walked in a shared, silent understanding. He led me down to the lobby. Right to Mark's side. He didn't let go immediately. His grip tightened for a fraction of a second, a final, unspoken farewell. Take care of yourself, Hannah. I nodded, pulling my hand away before the tears could fall. Life returned to a quiet rhythm. No one bothered me anymore. I had traded one unforgettable, all-consuming love for a lifetime of financial security. It seemed like a fair trade. Though sometimes, in the dead of night, I would still think of Caleb. Of those happy, hopeful days in our tiny apartment. But life moves forward. The past is the past. I bought a plane ticket, preparing to leave the city as I'd promised. I had no plans to return. Before I left, I went to see my parents. They were the same as ever. They couldn't go 2 sentences without it devolving into a screaming match, followed by a physical fight, followed by a tearful reconciliation. As if their toxic love affair was the only thing that mattered in the world. It was fine. They didn't love me, but they also left me alone. I could live my life however I wanted. Even seeing me show up pregnant, they barely batted an eye. My mother gave me some backhanded advice. Hannah, I gave you a beautiful face. Don't waste it. It doesn't matter who the baby's father is. Just make sure you marry a rich man, you hear me? My father scoffed. Don't listen to your mother's nonsense. The most important thing for a woman is to have some dignity. It's better to be poor than to be shameless. Don't be like your mother, using your looks to destroy families and become a common whore. They started fighting again, and all the bad memories came flooding back. My stomach tightened in knots. They didn't even notice when I left. I dragged my suitcase through the airport, completely alone. I looked down at my belly. In 5 more months, I wouldn't be alone anymore. I would give my child so much love. Enough for the both of us. Right before boarding, Caleb's mother stopped me. She had people with her. She told me Caleb and Sophia were getting married soon. At such a critical moment, she couldn't afford any complications. She knew the baby was Caleb's. Which was precisely why Caleb could never find out. She wanted to send me abroad. Once the dust settled, I could come back. She would give me a generous sum of money, enough to ensure that my child and I would be comfortable for the rest of our lives. Of course, if I preferred to live abroad, she could arrange for my immigration. I had no reason to refuse. I was alone. It didn't matter where I went. Caleb's mother sent me to London to wait for the baby. She handled everything. Concerned for my well-being, or rather, her grandchild's, she not only set me up in a comfortable flat but also hired a Chinese woman to help me with cooking and cleaning. The woman was efficient and discreet. She never asked about my past. She seemed to understand my situation perfectly, even comforting me by saying that many wealthy men in China made similar arrangements for women. She told me not to feel guilty and to just enjoy it. I just smiled tiredly, too weary to explain. Life here was peaceful and comfortable, a world away from my recent struggles. But the weather was always grey and overcast, a heavy gloom that seeped into my bones. I missed home. I decided that after Caleb and Sophia were married, I would return and find a small, quiet city to raise my child. I kept an eye on the news from back home, but by the time I went into labor, there was still no announcement of Caleb's wedding. Lying on the delivery table, as contractions ripped through me, my vision swam in and out of focus. The midwife held my hand, encouraging me in English. I must have been hallucinating from the pain. For a moment, the midwife standing beside me transformed into Caleb. He leaned down, his eyes soft and full of love. "Stay with me, Hannah," he said. "We're about to have our baby. Ear." The sound of a baby's piercing cry filled the room, and my world went dark. When I woke up, Caleb was gone. I knew it had been a hallucination. The midwife placed a tiny, bundled infant in my arms. "I'm really happy for you," she said, beaming. A wrinkled, pink little thing. Not beautiful at all, but my eyes filled with tears. This was our child. Caleb's and mine. I had a little girl. I named her Anne. No deep meaning. I just wanted her life to be peaceful and happy. The woman his mother hired took wonderful care of me during my recovery. My vision finally returned to normal. Everything was getting better. One afternoon, on the day she turned 100 days old, I was holding her in the backyard, enjoying a rare bit of sunshine. Suddenly, Caleb was there. Just like in my hallucination, he was looking at me with that same gentle, loving expression. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. "Let me hold our daughter," he said. Before I could even react, he expertly and naturally took her from my arms. Caleb looked down at the tiny, perfect baby in his embrace, a smile spreading across his face. "She has my eyes," he murmured. "But she has your mouth. So small." I stood beside him, a lump forming in my throat, a storm of emotions raging inside me. But I still had to ask. How did you know I was here? And your fiancée? What about Sophia? Caleb frowned, then handed Anne to the caregiver. He pulled me into his arms and nibbled my lip playfully. Do you have to ruin the mood right now? I finished what I needed to do. So our arrangement is over. Arrangement? What arrangement? I asked, confused. Caleb raised an eyebrow. The same kind of arrangement you had with Mark Johnson. Then he seemed to remember something, and his tone turned indignant. Although that guy was a little out of line, calling you my wife this and my wife that. I've never even gotten to call you that. From Caleb, I finally learned the whole story. His engagement to Sophia was a business deal from the very beginning. A mutually beneficial arrangement. Caleb needed to make his father let his guard down so he could promote his own people within the company and prepare to take control. What Sophia wanted was simple: 2% of the company's shares once Caleb was in charge. It was supposed to be a win-win, but Sophia got greedy and developed real feelings. And it was because of that, Caleb started to suspect something was wrong. He investigated and found out everything she had done. He then secretly had his mother send me out of the country so he could focus on cleaning house at the company, getting rid of the old guard and his father's illegitimate children. Now that he had full control of the company, he had nothing left to hide. His life, his marriage, they were finally his to decide. I asked him, if you hadn't run into me at the hospital, if that car accident hadn't happened, would we have just missed each other forever? Caleb shook his head, his expression serious. He told me that even on the day we broke up, even when he believed every single one of my heart-wrenching, cruel words, he never gave up on us. He was certain that I would never love anyone but him. His plan was to become powerful enough as quickly as possible, and then come find me. But then he saw me, pregnant, with a man by my side who fit the exact description of the partner I once told him I wanted. That's why he lost his composure, why he said things he didn't mean. The only reason he dared to knock on my door that night was because he was drunk. And it was that night that he started to suspect my husband and my marriage might be a sham. Luckily, fate had other plans. We didn't miss our chance. Caleb, Anne, and I returned home. We didn't have a big wedding, just a simple trip to City Hall to get our license. But I knew that the sense of security he gave me was more real and reliable than any grand ceremony. Caleb's mother adored Anne, saying she finally had the daughter she'd always wanted. As for Caleb's father, I never did meet him. Caleb said he had retired and was living out his days in Palm Beach. I do run into Sophia sometimes at parties. She married a man from a suitable family, another arranged merger. She's still beautiful and exquisitely dressed, but there's a weariness in her eyes. Her husband is always surrounded by ambitious young women, and she spends a great deal of her time and money managing them. When Caleb found out she had tried to pay me off, he was furious, calling her vicious. I just patted his arm to calm him down. Vicious? How? It was $5 million. She wasn't a villain. She was a saint. Caleb grumbled, pulling me down onto the bed. So I'm only worth $5 million to you? How about $100 million? You want it? I'll write you a check right now. Too bad. You're getting it anyway.